One night, while the wind bundled a small town in snow, abandoning it like a child in the forest, birth swept me, protesting, into the hungry maw of the storm. Small's Cow Song. O cow, your eyes are wide as sunrise. They wink me inside your mouth, hi-ho. Mother likes clover, but not to munch. I like mine with tea and milk. Father has no time for cuddle. My sisters won't wear jerseys itchy as your tongue, won't burp your rag doll tail, don't pout. Your calf cleaned my face happy ever after lunch. Do clouds sit up straight? Rain gets dirty when it falls down. I love your hopscotch yard of puddles, splash. That stone's my marker. Hen combs me toes. Are there pitchers in the gravel? Cow, your pasture gate creaks me into bed. Owl snores me prayers. Moo my candle out. Mother was gentle. She never wore pearls. When strong enough, she would rise from her sick bed, tuck us in. Her fingers at rest on our foreheads, her fingers a moment of warmth. Her eyes lit by the coal lamp, brightening the side of my bed until she blew the flame out. The smoke from the wick, a lullaby her breath drew from her lips. Her leaning forward, lost to the dark. I don't ever remember her closing the door. Maybe once I heard her skirt brushing the floorboards as she crossed the hall to her room. Whenever I think of it, I am still 12, falling asleep with a doll I seldom cared for, strangely content in my arms. A mother had let her face melt in the sun. Mother's dying was like the grapevine father would tend. It overwhelmed one side of the house. He named it Isabella. I resented him, thought he loved her every twist more than mother, more than myself. I was wrong. Now know, as mother knew, the comfort he found in pruning, each cut giving shape to Isabella's dark curves. I wish mother had told me. Such knowledge is climbing, too late, with unruly limbs about the rooms of my flesh. No longer young, long used to sitting alone here under this altar in Father's praying chair, sternly sighing amen, as it always did under his weight. I examine each twist of vine in the leaf-mottled light of my afternoon garden, where my dogs cavort like children chasing their tails, remembering that time, what little I know of it, is a tangle of growth and dead wood. Like Isabella's fruit, its ripeness is sour, such bruised skin soon to collapse inward, wrinkle round darkness. Mother was gentle, was Father's reflection, her gray eyes fine steel. Strong enough once, she took me, his truant, into the forest. We picnicked, the two of us, all afternoon. I made daisy chains, while every moment she hemmed with straight seams, broad folds of linen into a stiff apron for small. We both wore daisies. We smiled secretly at high tea when we got home. Mother was so gentle, and now I am old. Saturday evening, a letter to Lauren Harris. A black fog weighs the earth down. Even the trees are heavy. All day I found little time to paint, with drains to unclog, dogs to tend, with eaves to free of abandoned nests, soggy leaves to rake. This evening I am numb with silence. Four walls and my tenants withdraw into themselves while I sit with a rug at my window. Even my eagles soar among the rafters with closed beaks. I long for the slow folding of William's paddle through water, the sudden rise of poles against the carbon-hard forest at dawn. I hear the voice of Desoniqua calling the midnight cats to her breast for feeding. I still taste the cedar musk of rain the next morning. And yes, I agree, all is part of the same whole. All art is the eternal quest to express the soul that dwells within and around us. But must I make mine your need to fell God as I know him, pulling up devotions rooted in me when I was small, father's soft-eyed littlest girl, one hand held firmly in his while entering church, the other free, clutching a bouquet of maidenhair and lilies, the hem of my pinafore down. Still, as Whitman says, delve, mold, pile the words of the earth, work on age after age, nothing is to be lost. Lorn, my hand is become unsteady, forgive me. I am so alone here, such an old fool, really. Boxing Day, 1934. Night was still close as I set out for Christmas matins. Everything dark and mysterious, the air damp with rain. Kitchen windows cast one, perhaps two thin patches of light on what remained of a week's quiet snow. Puddles gleamed under street lamps, road after road, the shadow of my umbrella my companion the whole way. A procession of fir trees may have followed. It was too dark to know. There is something holy about communion before the sun shifts into morning, something warm and ephemeral hidden in the cathedral's dim corners. Yesterday, the scent of pine wreaths, the scarlet of berries, the star shapes of the altar poinsettias wove into the carols, into the bishop's soft litanies. We three kings of Orient are, bearing gifts we traverse afar. And a single voice, the whole congregation rose, a single wave inspirited with joy. When we came out, the dawn came also, wet and gray. The street lamps were off. I walked home alone, my umbrella weighted with rain. Most curtains were still drawn, tired by the bustle of Christmas Eve shopping. Westward leaning, still proceeding, guide us to thy perfect light. This evening, after straightening the 4 red candles my dear sisters placed in my window 2 nights before, I relit them, though they were almost burned down. Portents. Spirit and the Wilderness. When Mark Tobey arrived fresh from Paris on the Seattle ferry, I had felt abandoned for years. A paced solitaire in Victoria's steel claw setting. Isolation hooking deep into my flesh. People smirked at my pram full of animals while I shopped. Another of the Carr antiques pottering all around town. This one trying her darndest, Lizzie said, to spatter our late father's honor with paint. Slowly, I was beginning to heal. The words group of 7 and holy, sweet on my tongue. The totems I sketched that summer bivouacked all over the Charlottes, imbued with a forest stillness I ached so much to get at. Wrenching me with little ruckus away from an eternity of housework, Mark handed me a camel hair brush. In my studio he held court. The assembled steeped each night in his epiphanies in France. He talked of the manipulation of light and perspective, the latent power of objects suddenly transfigured by space. His ideas took me aback. A totem mother and babe rose out of my darkness, an interior light I had only guessed at, housed in her loins. Her hands so full with love, I made them huge and distorted as they enfolded the child. His face, wise as a father of fathers, a talisman of all that is given, lost, found, and forgiven. Quiet fell the evening inside me, my life's striations of cloud at last lifting away from the moon. The heart of the forest thrown open before me, I approached overwhelmed. Myself a daughter of prayer, conceived by father in mother, for God's pleasure at the edge of the world. Lizzie's death. The door to Mother's sewing room drifts open. Here in a corner, my first easel stood. At age 7, I fashioned it from branches Father gleaned from the back hedge. Hunched on chairs draped with afternoon light, Alice and I stitch our last sister's shroud. 2 old maids among 9 children, we coddle the dead. Creation busies our hands, soft linen yielding to thread, gleaming needles joining panels of absence. Story draft. I was a landlady a long time. It seems I never did enough dusting, was grouchy, often mean with the meals. I hung my totems and trees in the hallways. On occasion, I found my epiphanies knocked askew, turned to the wall. My studio, I made a room of my own. I hoisted chairs to each corner on a homemade rigging of pulleys and string. Beneath them I worked. Their cobwebbed backs would shimmer like wings, angels patiently watching. Worthwhile visitors I would bless, quickly offer a seat. The fools I'd let stand, hoping they'd leave. One day, before it struck me my work was at all known, I heard a knock at my door. My hair in a kerchief, my painting dress smelling of turps. I found on the steps a creature jazzed up in a great hat, face hidden under a flutter of ribbons. "You must be the painter, Miss Emily Carr," it suggested, cocking head and hat to the right. It wanted to buy. Fearing a weakness for posies drooping under the weight of pastel, I ushered it in. "What catches your eye?" I ventured. "Trees," it said, branches adrift in the wind. I pulled out a canvas. It was taken aback. I pulled out some sketches. Seeing God in each one, it oohed and it awed, collapsing into a chair, dropped without warning behind it. Removing its hat, a woman's eyes looked straight into mine. Finally she chose 4 little pines I worked hard at stirring, aware of the forest moving in on cat's feet behind them. $10 in my pocket, and the woman rehatted. I hurried her out. My tenants suspiciously eyed the brown square of paper tucked under her arm. That night I feted my sisters well on pork loin. 316 Beckley Street. It is a woman's room, my old studio. This morning, for the last time, I woke there, its gestation hours later given over to new owners. My emptied heart fruiting strange growth. A few blocks away I unpack in this cottage. One by one the rooms dress in my habits. The dusky windows soften with lace. Clutter gentles the cupboards. The first dishes drain in the sink. One door I cannot make myself open. though it leads me to an easel and paints. The days ahead, not yet my birthright. The woman I am, a sketch my shy hands, when ready, will flesh into life. At St. Mary's Priory. Death comes like the sea suddenly. I have waited so long. How long had I walked, one with its salt breath, insensible of the land's abrupt change into cliffs? How long had I stood there gazing, absently, compelled by its swell? When will I be enveloped utterly in the transfiguring arms of my God? My hair has been bound in linen. The cloth is damp. Its weight, limp, burns into my thoughts. I feel chill fingers search my wrists. They constantly harrow the furrows that pleat my brow. Dozing in my mouth, my tongue is still. Fanned by the slightest ebb of my breath, my lips are aflame with brine. The sister, a statue at the foot of my bed, is bent, reading the breviary open in her hands. Her lips are frozen in a rapture of faith. In the midst of life, we are in death, the slow release of the flesh.